Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. Thanks for holding this hearing. And I want to thank you, the people that are testifying tonight, for putting the veteran first. Thank you so much for your courage. I really appreciate it. Dr. Head, I know I don't have a lot of time. You mentioned in your testimony that this potentially could be the VA system, VHA, could be the best healthcare system in the world. How do we get there?
I believe with leadership. You know, there are certain people in leadership that have been there for 18, 20 years. And if they're a great leader, it's fabulous. But if they're not, it's very disruptive to the system. We need to find ways to bring in leadership on a continuing basis. Maybe I don't know if this is the answer, maybe term limits. And if you're a good leader, you're identified as a good leader, and perhaps you could be part of the team that brings on new leadership and show them the right direction. And if you're not such a good leader, maybe you should be integrated in another part of the federal government or retire. But leadership is clearly the key. Our surgical team at the West LA VA can be matched against any surgical team in the country, possibly in the world. We have my wife, much smarter than I am, is an interventional electrophysiologist, cardiologist at the VA. She could work anywhere in the country. Somehow she agreed to marry me and also dedicated her life to serving veterans. She loves her job. She obsesses over it. She's always worried about trying to save another veteran. I commend that. And there's lots of people like that within our system. We need leadership. The leadership will take the VA to that next level. I think it's not resources. We all care about the veterans. And you're very giving. And we'll do anything to serve our veterans. And it's not resources. We'll do anything possible. We'll do anything it takes to make this situation right and to serve the veterans. And I have no doubt that if the right leadership's brought to bear on this problem, we can solve this problem.
Thank you. Our next question, and this is for the entire panel. In the previous fiscal years, all senior executive service employees all received a fully successful performance. Last year, in particular, they received a fully successful performance, which totaled to $2.8 million in performance awards. Yes or no? And we'll start with Dr. Matthews. Yes or no, do you believe that this is an accurate assessment and that all eligible senior employees perform at a fully successful capacity and higher?
Oh, no.
No. Okay, how about Dr. Head?
No.
Okay. Mr. Davis?
Based on what we now know in the public record, absolutely not.
Dr. Mitchell?
No.
Thank you. Next question is for Dr. Matthews. Through your own investigative work during your time at the St. Louis VA, you identified that on average, you spoke to this in your testimony, on average, psychiatrists were seeing 6 veterans per day, which accounted for 3.5 hours and an 8-hour workday. When you contacted other psychiatry chiefs regarding actual time spent in direct patient care by psychiatrists seeing veterans, do you know if they had been tracking this information prior to your inquiry?
You know, I do not know if they were tracking it. I know that our VA does not track it, and I know that many other VAs do not track it because a lot of the other chiefs wanted to know the answers as well. So I got a lot of emails from other chiefs saying, you know, why don't you forward the responses to me as well? And just recently, there was another new chief of psychiatry who had the exact same question that was, you know, sent out to everybody saying, you know, what is a reasonable expectation? What number should be reasonable?
Thank you. Our next question, again for Dr. Matthews. Your findings also discovered that 60% of the veterans were dropping out of mental health care after 1 or 2 visits. And I have town meetings and I have veterans advisory councils, and they tell me the same thing. Do you believe it was directly connected to the experience they had while seeking treatment with the VA? Is it the type of treatment? Should there be alternatives to that treatment? If you could...
Sure. You know, my goal was to make the VA mental health clinic a very welcoming place with very easy access to care. The majority of the veteran complaints that I reviewed had to do with long wait times, not being able to come to seek their care. And that really demoralized them from obtaining care. Some of the young veterans that I saw in my new capacity, the previous capacity as the compensation and pension evaluator, I came across some really horrendous barriers to care for veterans who had tremendous amount of combat exposure. They were in some of the specialized forces, and there. Just one instance I'll mention here.
Please do.
Is this veteran was doing so poorly that his roommate, who's also a veteran, had both taken off a day of work so that he can take this veteran and get him care. So they come to the VA, and it takes 3 or 4 hours to find out whether this person is even eligible for care or not. And then they determine that, yes, this person is actually eligible for care. So this veteran then comes to the PTSD clinic and is not seen by a healthcare provider, is told that we will contact you next week after a meeting to determine what we're going to do for it. Now, I was doing a compensation and pension evaluation, so I had access to the records, and I was looking at whether whether there's a record of this veteran actually going to the clinic or not, and I did not find any record. But there is a subsequent notation saying a form letter that was sent to this veteran that stated that we learned that you were interested in obtaining care at our facility. Please call these numbers to schedule an appointment. So this is for a veteran who has served our country and sacrificed a lot, who even the military recognized had PTSD, had taken a day off of his low-paying job to obtain care, and then there was no record of this person being at the VA, and the contact was not made. So when I evaluated him, I asked this person that, would you consider coming to the VA to obtain care? And this veteran was very clear in saying, no, I'm not going to obtain care here. I was not treated with respect, and he didn't want to come to get care there. So that's one really bad example that I can say about how the access to care and the whole attitude of it not being a welcoming place, of erecting barriers, that really prevents people from coming back. And there's a lot of such complaints that I heard in my capacity as the chief. So yes, the answer is yes. How we are interfacing with the veteran, what kind of access we are providing, and what kind of care environment we are providing, I think is critical in maintaining patients in care.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you all for your testimony.